hockey expert, take you through some individual games, some season-long information, how to bet the NHL. I'm not going to say who that is quite yet, but I know a couple of you guys know that out there. I'll be your host tonight as normal, Donnie Rightside. We do have Major League Baseball on the docket tonight. Last night, Yankees down 3-0 in the first inning, come back and cruise past the Minnesota Twins to advance from the wild card round to set up versus the Cleveland Indians. Tonight, we got another one heading out west tonight to what used to be called the Bob. We're going to have the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight and the Colorado Rockies. Two good-looking lineups, two good pitchers on the mound. We'll dissect some information and see if we can find you some winners. Also, we do have a college football game this evening that we're going to tap into as well. NFL's on the card for Thursday night as well as Sunday, and also get into the weekly NCAA college football card. A lot of fun tonight we're going to have here on the closing line. Let me bring in my resident hockey expert. He will be here each and every Wednesday throughout the season. Maybe all the way through Stanley Cup Finals there for next June. Ian Cameron Applebanner, you can see him as the host of Ice Guys. He appears with me every Wednesday also on the Roundtable. Great guy, knowledgeable all the way around. Great information. Met him down in person at the IFBC. Fantastic guy. Ian, welcome into the closing line, buddy.
Donnie Rightside. Awesome to be here. Great to be with you every Wednesday here on the closing line moving forward. We're going to have a lot of fun. I just know it. And I'll tell you what, for everyone watching the show, Donnie, it's good to be on the right side of quality content. And that's watching this show at 6 p.m. Eastern time every day, not Sports Center. We talked about this. Nobody needs to hear Tim Kirchin and Buster Olney give their predictions for tonight's baseball game when they don't have a clue what the money line or total is. You want to be here, listening to our opinions and listening to the closing line on every single Monday to Friday night basis. Happy to be here, Donnie. Excited.
No, very good. Because again, as the seasons go on, the one great thing about sportsbookreview.com, many of you have already been introduced to me, to Ian. There's new guys that are coming in all along, knowledgeable to teach you a lot of information that you have. Because if you follow the shows over the summer, me and the big man do a lot of work in Major League Baseball, college basketball, college football, the NFL. The one thing we don't have on our show is that NHL aspect, which I wanted to bring in with Ian here. And as I said again, he's going to be here each and every Wednesday, maybe even popping in for a 5 to 10 minute video, live in to try to give some people some insight on NHL action as the season goes along. Because again, I'm a handicapper, Ian's a handicapper. When somebody else has an expertise that's on top of mine, I'm always going to be a sponge in this business. Ian's one of the best out there. Obviously, a Canadian guy talking hockey. This isn't the guy coming from, Ecuador or whatever, trying to tell you about hockey. This is a Canadian. He knows his hockey, knows his Canadian football as well. Great capper, very versed and knowledgeable in a lot of stuff. Why don't we get into the card tonight, Ian, before we get over some hockey information and we can pick apart that card as a, long, what are we saying? It's October the 4th. We're going to have hockey in right through till late May, June here?
We're talking mid to late June, exactly around the same time NBA wraps up. It's a long season. You got to pace yourself in this sport.
No, you're absolutely right on that. So, we got a long way to go, a lot of information to be dissected. The best part about the show also, Ian is very versed, as I said again, on many different sports. If you haven't seen him throughout the channel, I'm glad you're going to get a chance to see him tonight. Ian, let's get to the baseball card. 8:08 first pitch Eastern time, Colorado and Arizona. It's going to be Gray versus Greinke. About 22,000 tickets have been tracked in this ball game, Ian. Line hasn't moved that much on the total aspect. Opened up at 8.5, still currently sitting at 8.5 here. Pinnacle opened the line as a side, Ian, at minus 168. Pinnacle at 154 right now. Chris opened up a little bit earlier at 165, now at 158. Sportsbook.com, 157. Decided advantage towards Arizona. If we saw last night, Ian, nice to have that home cooking in the Bronx, even if your starting pitcher doesn't go that deep, which obviously didn't even make out of the first inning. The one good thing about the playoffs and having a wild card, which there is no tomorrow if you don't win, all hands on deck from a pitching aspect. Whatever needs to be done. If Greinke struggles through 2 1/3 innings, they're going to go right to another starter, right to somebody out of the bullpen. You saw how well fortified the Yankees were last night in their bullpen to help them win that game. Ian, looking at this game, obviously, it's going to start in a couple hours here. What are we looking at from your perspective here on this one?
Well, when it comes to me with Major League Baseball, I basically dip out of it after the All-Star break, but I come back in playoff time because I'm interested in the baseball postseason. I want to watch these games. I want to see how it unfolds. It's always great drama. So my betting interest and involvement Donnie, when it comes to baseball at playoff time, it ramps up again. I get involved. Tonight's game is tough, but I'm going to make a case for the underdog here, the Colorado Rockies. It's one of those bets. It's one of those classic Donnie Rightside McDonald's money bets for me. It's basically small money in play. Hopefully, I'm loving it by the end of the night, and the Colorado Rockies able to get it done. But there's a couple reasons I like Colorado here, Donnie. I like John Gray's form down the stretch. It's very rare you're able to take back a plus price of this magnitude. What we're talking, plus 150 in that range, 155 with Colorado. With John Gray pitching as well as he did down the stretch, tremendous strikeout to walk ratio, great form he was for the Rockies. And I can't say that Zach Greinke was at his absolute best down the stretch for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Look, and his full season numbers are going to look fantastic at home here at Chase Field. But Zach Greinke labored, particularly in the month of September, was roughed up a little bit, was not having a bunch of clean starts down the stretch of the season. It's a little bit of a concern for me just based on the fact of the price that he's being asked to command here in the betting markets for a one-game elimination type wild card game. And Arizona, as much as they've hit the ball well at home, and we know Colorado sometimes their lineup can go cold a little bit on the road, Paul Goldschmidt definitely limped home to the finish with some struggles at the plate, something that may concern you a little bit if you're the Diamondbacks here. Just from a pricing standpoint, I thought Arizona should be favored, but not quite to this magnitude. So I made a small case for the Rockies here as an underdog.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you there. I'm going to go a little bit more square in this play. I talked with Gabe the other day on the Fantasy Sports Network and also going over with the big man. I like to lean square early on because I just think the overall better team, they're in a home environment. Greinke's been good throughout the season at home. He did stumble a little bit down the stretch. If we take a look at a lineup standpoint here, much different than last night. When you looked at the Yankees lineup, the Yankees go deep, have a lot of power hitters there at home. When you looked on the other side, from Minnesota, no Miguel Sano in the middle of the lineup. They were anticipating possibly getting him back for the wild card round, maybe for a playoff run, but that was not to be the case. But in this one, if you look 1 through 8, Ian, on both of these baseball teams, not bad. If we look at the lineups, you're going to have Blackmon, LeMahieu, Gonzalez, Arenado, Story, Parra, Mark Reynolds, and also Lucroy to bring it up. There's no easy out in that lineup. Flip it over to the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. Peralta, Marte, Goldschmidt, Martinez, Lamb, Pollock, Descalso, and Mathis. Outside of maybe Mathis, Descalso's been okay this year, but outside of Mathis, that 1 through 7 is a really good hitting lineup, which brings me to my next one that we're going to take about is the total. Last night, I leaned towards the under. What a terrible pick that was. I'm not afraid to admit that. Should I say dumb of me to go with an under in the Bronx in that little bandbox ballpark, and it was over rather quickly. I believe by the third inning, they had already had the, I believe it was a 4-4 tie, so obviously covering the 7.5. Tonight, I'm going to actually lean on the over again tonight, as opposed to what I was looking at last night, over 8.5. I think they can both get 4 runs. The reason I like that is both of these guys have some hammers in the lineup that can hit for extra bases, drive a ball out of the ballpark. I'm going to lean on the over 8.5, Ian. Any thoughts from your perspective on which way you might be leaning on the total side here?
Yeah, in theory, it looks like it might be a decent under, but it's hard for me to get involved with the under here in Arizona. That's another hitter-friendly park. And Donnie, I feel for you last night with the Yankee game because of the fact that you look at some of these home runs in that 6-run first inning, 3 on each side. These hits, these are like little duck snorts. They end up in people's gloves in 90% of the other parks in Major League Baseball. In Yankee Stadium, it's out of the park, barely clearing the wall, that little short porch in right field. That's like little T-ball, basically, or Little League Baseball, trying to get the home run over that right field wall. It's a disaster for pitchers. It's so hard pitching in that park. Tough result because, again, a lot of those home runs, especially the Dozier one, a couple of these ones that barely just cleared the wall, they're not home runs in a lot of other ballparks, but at Yankee Stadium, you bet they are. So tough result there. You know what? Gray's form is great. So right now, and Greinke has been good at home. Didn't like his current form. Tough opinion here on the total. I'd lean under, but I'm going to stay away.
Yeah, no, I don't have a lot on this. Give me Big Mac money tonight, Ian, and I'm going to take the over 8.5 in that one. Sidewise, I would lean towards Arizona completely being square, but again, both of these are really good ball clubs. A lot of pressure in a situation. You don't get to take a deep breath, Ian, if you lose the first game here because you're already going to be sent home. The winner is going to get the Dodgers. What a consolation prize, huh? Winner gets the Dodgers?
Oh, yeah, what a great consolation. Yeah, but the Dodgers again, which Dodgers is it going to be? Is it going to be the Dodgers team that in June was absolutely killing it or the Dodgers team that was coughing up a lung in August and early September. That's going to be very interesting to see how the Dodgers are able to flip that switch. The biggest thing with the Dodgers is going to be, Clayton Kershaw's numbers very good this year. Is he going to be able to get basically rid of this playoff hex? I mean, it's been a situation where he's not been awful in the playoffs, but he's not been dominant Clayton Kershaw either during the postseason. Is he going to? I need more from Clayton Kershaw than 5-6 innings, 4 runs allowed, and labors, and his pitch counts at 110. And I've seen too much of that from Clayton Kershaw, Donnie, the last couple of seasons in the playoffs. He's got to pitch deeper. He's got to put that foot down and show I am one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And to me, I don't care as much about regular season success. To me, to be able to do that and make that proclamation, got to be able to put your foot down and get it done in the big spot in the postseason. Fascinated to see what we get from Kershaw here in October.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting because he's also going to be lined in an extremely high number going against a really good baseball team. It's not Kershaw going against, San Diego that he's going to beat down or a really bad San Francisco ball club. He's going to catch a really good team coming into this game, feeling hot, coming off a wild card victory here. But in the chat box, Loretti29, Ian says, did I miss the hockey talk? No, you did not miss the hockey talk. We're getting to it right now. 4 games lined on the card. It's got to be like Christmas for Ian's. Been looking forward to this all summer since the Stanley Cup Finals have ended. Hockey season starts tonight. And if you know me, I don't cap hockey. I'm a huge Flyers fan. Not to say I'm an overwhelming NHL fan, but I do pay attention because, hey, Flyers are my hometown team. Been watching them since, being a little kid. One of the most heartbreaking losses I ever took was in Game 7 in 1987, Philadelphia Flyers versus the Edmonton Oilers, one of the best hockey teams that was ever assembled. The Flyers rallied and took them to 7 games and lost in Edmonton 3-1 in the final. Ron Hextall, my childhood idol growing up, had made a run. I believe he won the Vezina that year and also won the Conn Smythe heading in there as the best player in the playoffs. So that's where my heart lies here. They do have a game tonight. But, Ian, let's get right down to it. Let's go over these 4 games tonight. We're going to see how that sets up for the season, and I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. And how about this for a rotation, Ian? Rotation number 1 and number 2, Toronto, Winnipeg. Anderson and Mason going to face off tonight here. About 2,500 tickets have been tracked, Ian. Oh, it looks like the line opened up Pinnacle at -110. Chris opened up at a -111. So roughly a pick 'em either way. Hasn't had much line movement. Bet Online now showing a -114. Over under in this one, Ian, is 6. Lay it out for me, brother.
Should be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. If you like speed, if you like skill, if you like talent, you're going to enjoy this hockey game tonight between the Leafs and Jets. Look, Toronto took the NHL by storm last year, a year that with so much youth and so many rookies throughout their lineup, this Toronto Maple Leafs team able to make the playoffs and really give the Washington Capitals everything they could handle in that first round series before losing in 6 games. And keep in mind, that series had multiple overtime games. I mean, you would be hard-pressed to see who the better team was in that series. That's how good Toronto was. They battled the Capitals real hard, and now they're going to be looking to carry that momentum into this year, Donnie, with a little bit more expectations and pressure on their shoulders. Nobody expected them to do a thing last year, a Tinker's Dam, essentially. Now you've got to basically get ready for a season knowing that people are going to expect you to make the playoffs this year. And if you don't, there's going to be some disappointments. This team's loaded offensively. We saw it already in the preseason. Austin Matthews, 40 goals last year, tremendous rookie season. Him and William Nylander already have some scary chemistry offensively. They are 4 lines. They can roll 4 lines at you. They added Patrick Marleau, veteran from the San Jose Sharks, in the offseason, going to enhance them from a scoring perspective as well. They still have veterans like James Van Riemsdyk, Tyler Bozak in their lineup. They've got a defense that added Ron Hainsey, an NHL veteran, a Stanley Cup winner with the Penguins last year, that I think is going to help this Leafs team quite a bit at that end of the ice. Frederik Andersen got better. He was injured to start last year, getting over an injury he was. So he started out slow, but really picked it up, became a good goalie. Toronto's going to be loaded offensively. Winnipeg, on the other hand, they've got a great top 6 forward group. Lyonnais, Scheifele, Wheeler, they're absolutely loaded up front. My concern with Winnipeg is defensively, not very good last year. Goaltending, they get Mason from the Philadelphia Flyers. But Steve Mason, and you may know this as a Flyer fan, Donnie, a streaky goalie as it gets. He'll go through incredible runs where you can't get a puck past him, and then he'll go through equally incredible runs in a bad way where he can't stop a beach ball. So it's one of those situations for Steve Mason. What are you going to get from him? Are you going to get consistency in the net? That remains to be seen. Winnipeg was terrible with taking too many penalties last year, and their penalty kill wasn't bailing them out. They had a horrible penalty kill. If they take too many penalties tonight, that Leaf power play is lethal, going to make them pay. I think we see goals. 10-0 to the over the last 10 meetings. That's right, 10-0 to the over. The last 10 meetings between Toronto and Winnipeg. Both meetings last year, 5-4 final scores. Total sitting at 6. It's higher than normal. I still like the over. I think we see goals in bunches and a lot of red light action, the red light district in the Peg.
Ian, I got to ask you a question here. Being a capper, the game evolves as the season goes along. The one thing I used to remember in the NHL, even a couple years back, maybe a new overtime rule, increased, efforts on, because growing up, the New Jersey Devils, just to put it in perspective, used a left wing lock out there. They wanted to get rid of that. They wanted to open up the ice. They wanted to take, the red line away. Emphasis on penalties early in the season. We see it a lot in football as well, where they say, you know what? We're not going to let you get around the clutch and grab anymore. So instead of having the usual, like Ian, per side, 5 to 6 power plays, I remember a couple years ago, you were seeing like teams with 10, 12, 13 power plays early in the season. And as the season goes along, it's not so much that the teams adjusted to it. The refs just stop calling it, and then you get to the playoffs, and they don't call anything here. Early on in the season, I want to ask you a question on this. Is it better to take totals over in the NHL or under based on that perspective? And is that still perception is a reality that more penalties are called earlier in the season to set the tone so the players know what to look for?
I think this year, Donnie, it could really be more penalties. Not so much in years past that I've looked for that or noticed that there's a higher rate of penalties early on, but this year you've got these face-off violations that are going into play in the NHL. This rule that if you do not put your stick down in the right spot, or you try to gain an unfair advantage in the face-off circle, you are going to get called for a 2-minute penalty. That's something that I even can't figure out what is legal and what's not. And I've tried to watch a couple preseason games, and I still haven't figured it out. Players don't know. Coaches don't know. It seems to be random. And a case-by-case, whatever referee thinks is a legal face-off and what a referee thinks is not a legal face-off. There's no consistency. I think it's a mess of a rule. They haven't really ironed it out well, but you're going to see it instituted, and it's in play. It's a new rule. Players are going to have to adapt to it. Coaches are going to have to adapt to it, and I think that rule alone could lead to more penalties early in the season than you usually would see. And, of course, the more penalties, the more power plays, chances are you're going to see more goals, and you're going to want to look to capitalize, Donnie, on those situations if there are indeed more penalties with teams that have a bad penalty kill. If you've got a bad penalty kill, teams in those games, you're going to play more overs. Teams have a good penalty kill, or are able to kill off those 2-minute minors, then that's going to be a situation where maybe those games have a better chance to stay under the total. So it's going to be case-by-case basis, but watch this face-off violation rule. I think that alone could lead to a little bit of a surge, a little bit of an increase in the number of penalties early on.
See, that rule number one here in the sports betting industry, being a capper or trying to learn, is if you don't know, ask the professional. And 9 times out of 10, that professional will give you a good answer, as Ian just did there. Fascinating stuff. Again, it's always something I like to look forward to entering into any season, is to pick the brain of somebody that knows the sport inside and out, how you can bet it early on in the season. More penalties to start the season, looking at some totals here. Ian, let's get the game number 2, 8 p.m. Eastern time. They're going to drop the puck. Rotation 3-4, St. Louis and Pittsburgh. Allen versus Murray in net. If we take a look at the total here, Ian, Pinnacle opened up at 5.5, currently sitting at 5.5. Most outlets across the board at 5.5, maybe paying double juice on that. Heavy decided advantage here for Pittsburgh. Opened up at Pinnacle 185, still sitting at that number. Sportsbook.com showing a -195. What are we seeing from Sid the Kid squad this year lining up against St. Louis? Because the odds maker right now doesn't give St. Louis too much of a shot here tonight.
Yeah, this is a tough game because I am of the belief Pittsburgh will take a small step back. I don't think they're going to win their 3rd straight Stanley Cup championship. They lost some key pieces from last year's team. The problem is, on the St. Louis side, they're going to be looking at this start of the season and thinking, what did we do to deserve all these injuries already? And we haven't even played a regular season game yet. I mean, when you look at the St. Louis Blues and their injury list right now, it's real bad. Alex Steen is out. Patrick Berglund's out. Jay Bomeister on the blue line is not starting the season for this team. Patrick Berglund out for the St. Louis Blues. And in Robbie Fabry's case, his injury is season-ending. I mean, it's absolute disaster right now for the St. Louis Blues. They're already essentially a little bit of a mash unit. entering this very first game, already having to test their depth. Already a team that I feel when they're completely healthy still struggles at times to score goals, and now it's not going to be it's going to be even harder, I think, for the St. Louis Blues to do that. Pittsburgh Penguins, though, Nick Bonino is going to be a big loss for this team. He did a lot for Pittsburgh. Great two-way player. They don't have as much depth now at that center ice position. Something they have absolutely crushed teams in years past is their depth at center, down the middle of the ice. Pittsburgh just doesn't have it quite to that extent this year. They're also going to be without Patrick Hornquist, a key forward for them early this season. So it's a tough game for me, Donnie, because I was looking at it like I want to pick my spots to go against Pittsburgh, but I can't do it with this St. Louis team. They are banged up. They're also a bet against team. I think St. Louis is going to be scratching and clawing just to make the playoffs in the rough and tumble Western Conference. And these massive injuries that have hit them hard to begin the season, Donnie, this certainly hasn't helped their cause one bit.
Interesting there. Any thoughts, Ian, on the 5.5 total in that game?
I'd probably go under a little bit. I don't know if St. Louis wants to go in a shootout with Pittsburgh. They can't. I mean, Pittsburgh's still loaded offensively in terms of their forwards, Crosby, Malkin, and Hagelin and company, Kessel. So they're going to be able to score goals with the best of them. The concern that I've got here with St. Louis is offense. Where are they going to find it now moving forward? That's going to be a little bit of an issue for me with the St. Louis Blues. And you got capable goalies. Jake Allen's a little bit up and down, a little inconsistent, but we know what we're getting with Matt Murray. Now he's won a Stanley Cup, couple Stanley Cups now. Matt Murray's dethroned Marc-Andre Fleury, who is now in Vegas. So it's his job. It's his number one net-minding role now for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Matt Murray, he's a good one. I think this game's actually got a chance to stay under that 5.5, so I'd lean that way.
All right, we'll keep it moving down the list. 5-6 on the rotation. Calgary and Edmonton, Smith and Talbot in the net tonight. Over under across the board at 5.5. Nice little favorite here for Edmonton at home. Opened up at -152. Ian now sits at 153 at Pinnacle, 160 at Chris, 160 at Sportsbook. So a decided effort here in the way for the Oilers. Little battle of Canada out there, out west in Western Canada. Give some thoughts on this game for us, Ian.
Oh, another great game. It's much like the Leaf-Jets game. Lots of speed, lots of skill, lots of talent, and I think we're going to have maybe not lots of goals, but I think it's got a chance to creep up in over 5.5. Cam Talbot is a little bit of a concern for me heading into this season right now with the Edmonton Oilers. He had a great season last year, but he hasn't even sniffed playing 70-plus games in a single season in net before last season. And that was by far the most amount of games he's played in his NHL career. A lot of times when you do that for the first time, you go through that intense workload, you're a little bit worn down a little bit physically, mentally, especially at the beginning of the next season. So Cam Talbot, I think he's a very good goalie. It could have another very good season, but I'm not sold on him having that great season once again, especially when he's not used to playing the amount of games he did last year. Calgary tried to do something with their goaltending. It wasn't good enough last year. Brian Elliott just didn't pan out with them. It was very erratic. He's no longer there. They get Mike Smith from the Arizona Coyotes, sign him in the offseason. Veteran goalie for the Calgary Flames brought in here. But again, Mike Smith playing without any pressure on an Arizona Coyotes team for years that has not been very good. Now you're going to be asked to do a little something. That's going to be a bit of a concern, I think, for me. Can he? And he's a year older. We're talking about a goalie now in his 30s. Is he going to be able to play well in net for Calgary? So maybe it is an upgrade, but that remains to be seen. And Edmonton's got all kinds of firepower. We know that with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, Patrick Maroon. They formed a great top line. No question about that. They do have some decent depth, in my opinion, as well, this Edmonton Oilers team. You worry maybe about scoring from the bottom six forwards, but they're going to get more than enough from the top six guys as long as they stay healthy. They won't have to worry about their ability to score and be able to produce on the power play. I think from a Calgary perspective, they get a little bit of a jolt from the signing of Jaromir Jagr, the ageless one, who is still in the NHL, is going to be with this Calgary Flames team. And you got to like some of their offensive pieces. Sean Monahan, Johnny Gaudreau, Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk showed the ability to produce offensively last year. All youngsters for this Calgary team. They're going to be able to score some goals this year. 3 of the 4 games went over between the Flames and Oilers last year, so we could get a little bit of an over here in this game. And it's a little inflated to me on Edmonton. I don't disagree with some of the sentiment in the chat box here that Edmonton's a little bit overvalued coming into the season. Look, they got all the hype. Everybody loves them to win the West, win the Stanley Cup. Tons of hype behind them, but they're overvalued a little bit in the betting markets as a result. I like this Edmonton team a lot. Not going to go against them here, Donnie, but if you want to make a case to take a flyer with the plus price on Calgary, I don't think that's a crazy thing to do. This should be a close game and a really exciting one.
Folks, just tuning into the closing line October 4th, presented by SportsbookReview.com. No surprise here. Don't change the channel. That's Ian Cameron at Bobano right there. We're breaking down hockey. Yes, hockey does start tonight, and we saved the best for last year, Ian. The single most improved, best team in the NHL, rotation 7-8. Your Philadelphia Flyers going to take the ice tonight versus San Jose. Elliott versus Jones in this matchup. Over under, Ian, 5.5. Pinnacle opens up at 160. Looks like the Flyers taking a little bit of money on here. Pinnacle now showing -144. Chris at -147. Ian, I'm a big Flyers fan. I will be tuning in. I will be staying up late tonight. What can I look forward from my Fly guys tonight and maybe throughout the season?
It's going to be interesting. I do want to loop back quickly because I see Mohammed saying brutal depth on the Oilers.
Yep, sure.
I agree. They're bottom 6 forwards. It's a situation where you're right. I mean, in terms of scoring, where are they going to get it? Are you going to get it from a Cassian and some of these guys that are lurking in the bottom 6 forward positions for the Oilers? That remains to be seen. I forgot to mention this, and I should mention it. Andrej Sekera is a huge injury for the Edmonton Oilers to begin the season on their blue line. He's so good defensively, always in good position, blocks shots, kills penalties, advances the puck up the ice. Very big injury loss for Edmonton early in the season. Andrej Sekera, arguably one of their best defensemen last year. So we'll see if they're able to cope with that moving forward to begin this season. But they could struggle a little bit at the back end to make life a little bit harder on their goalie, Cam Talbot, without him on the ice. I know Donnie's pumped up for me to talk about this game now. Flyers and Sharks.
Yes.
And you know what? I am going to have a piece of the Philadelphia Flyers as an underdog tonight, +130, +135. And it's not so much that I love what I'm seeing from the Flyers. It's that I think San Jose Sharks are a bet against team for me. I was going against them in a big way last year in the first round against the Edmonton Oilers, in which they were knocked out. The San Jose team is an aging core of players with Joe Pavelski, Joe Thornton, and company. I mean, Patrick Marleau moves on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know they still have Brent Burns, who's a very good defenseman, but has he peaked? Maybe he can only go down from this point onward. That remains to be seen. As San Jose, to me, struggled mightily with speed and defending teams with speed. And the Philadelphia Flyers, I know they're littered with so much question marks and youth up and down their lineup. But this Flyers team does have a lot of speed now in it, which they didn't necessarily have last year. I mean, you're looking at Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux, Voracek, but you're looking at some of these guys that they're going to be filling in on the back end. Ivan Provorov, I think, is going to be a defenseman that's going to really be a good one for the Flyers long term. Shane Gostisbehere is a guy that was questionable coming into this game from an injury standpoint, but he is going to play. He's an offensive-minded defenseman, great puck mover, very good on the power play. I think he's going to play better this season now. He's got a lot of NHL experience now and games under his belt that I think he'll be a lot better. It's just a much younger, youthful, speedier lineup now that the Philadelphia Flyers have. They jettisoned out some of these old veterans that couldn't skate very well, particularly on their forward group. Jordan Wheel, pretty good. Of course, they bring in their second overall pick, first-round draft pick, Nolan Patrick, who I thought played very well in the preseason for the Flyers. He's a guy that I think has potential to make an impact right away. But you just look at the Sharks. This is another team in terms of depth forwards. You know, we don't know if Joel Ward's going to play tonight, and he's a guy that from a depth forward perspective can score for the San Jose Sharks. And if they don't have him, that's going to hurt. I don't think Jannik Hansen has played well for San Jose since they got him from Vancouver. You know, Tomas Hertl's been a little bit streaky. Timo Meier, Melker Karlsson. You know, there's just a lot of question marks once you get past Thornton, Pavelski, Couture, you know, Mikhail Bodker. Once you get past some of these guys, Jonas Donskoy, you get past those guys on San Jose, there's questions about their depth. And I don't like Paul Martin on the blue line anymore. I didn't think he had a great season last year. He's an aging, slower defenseman. That's not good for the type of NHL hockey we see these days with all these younger talents and fast skaters. that you see in the NHL here. Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello, not very good. I love Braun and Vlasic, but outside of those two defensemen, I think there's depth concerns on the blue line now for this San Jose Sharks team, and I think it's a team that's the arrow's a little bit down on them. They're another team that they've been a perennial playoff team. I think they're going to be in a battle for their lives to make the playoffs this year, if they even make the playoffs. I'm willing to bet against San Jose right out of the gate, even though I know the Flyers have their question marks, including Brian Elliott. Can he bounce back in net for them, veteran goalie that they got in the offseason? Can he come to Philadelphia, solve some of these Flyers goaltending woes? That remains to be seen. But I'm going to take a stab because I don't think San Jose is going to be anywhere as good this year. Give me the Flyers at a plus price. Worth a look.
Matthew Varnum says, any concern with Philadelphia's goalies giving up a lot of goals again this year? Yes, I don't think they have it. We haven't settled on a goalie since 1987 with Ron Hextall. We've been looking for goalie after goalie, Roman Czechmanek. You name it, we've had it and can't seem to get it right. We even had the crazy Russian in here for a couple years that we overpaid and, off to Kazakhstan. Back he goes there. So we're still looking for somebody. Don't have it yet. Anthony Stolar's in the minor league system. They're trying to look at future, but that's a couple years down the path. Ian, any light at the end of the tunnel? Can the Flyers get away with doing one of those, goalie swaps where one guy plays, 45 games, the other guy picks up the rest of that? Not usually the best recipe. You always want to have that guy you can hang your hat on there. How about the Flyers goalies right now? How are we going to look throughout the season?
Well, that's the question mark. I mean, the guy backing up Brian Elliott, of course, is Michael Neuwirth. And Michael Neuwirth's been a guy that's been, hit or miss. He's been streaky as well. So that's what it's been for Flyers goaltenders, going all the way back to friggin' Roman Czechmanek way back in the day. And some of these guys that they had like 10 or 15 years ago when Ken Hitchcock was the head coach of this team. I mean, just very streaky. They could go on a run, win 5 or 6 games in a row, and then the next 5 or 6 games, they wouldn't even look like they belonged on an NHL ice surface. So that's been the story of the Flyers goaltending for 15 to 20 years. As Donnie knows, since Ron Hextall. Ron Hextall was really the last, die-in-the-wool, reliable. Every single night, he's going to give your team a chance to win goaltender. That was Ron Hextall. Flyers have been devoid of those goaltenders basically ever since. So it's going to be interesting. Brian Elliott's capable. Again, Brian Elliott, when he's on his game, he's terrific. When he's off his game, which he was at times with Calgary last year, he can get pretty ugly. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Flyers get in between the pipes. And they are a team, Donnie, that their ceiling is they could potentially sneak into the playoffs or barely just miss, or they could be a bottom feeder. They could be right down there with New Jersey and some of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference this season. Their scope of potential in either direction, very wide-ranging in my opinion.
Yeah, going back to the old Hextall, Garth Snow days, and then saying, Boucher is going to be the most unbelievable goalie of all time because he had one good playoff run. I mean, that's what we do in Philadelphia. We have been waiting for decades to get ourselves a goalie, so we'll see if it turns out. Ian, before we flip the page on hockey tonight, I want you to give me an idea, not to win the Stanley Cup, not to take a favorite. Give me one of those teams that's sitting on the outside of the playoffs that you would think coming into the hockey season. Who can make a run into the playoffs here, maybe unsuspecting, get some talent, ride a wave in there, and steal one of those seeds?
Well, I'm going to give quickly 2 teams. Dallas Stars, to me, will make the playoffs, will be a lot better. I mentioned this on the Ice Guys. They bring in Ken Hitchcock. And when Ken Hitchcock is brought into a team as a head coach, they don't take 2 years to get better. They get better right away. He gets them to play better right away. He did it in Philadelphia when he joined there 15 years ago. They were struggling after they fired Bill Barber. Ken Hitchcock comes in there, cleans it up, and they have a great season in his first year as head coach. When he goes to Columbus, they made the playoffs, the Jackets, for the first time in their franchise with Ken Hitchcock as their head coach. With St. Louis, they fire Davis Payne. Ken Hitchcock comes in. They have a great first season with him. He makes them better right away. Dallas, what was their issue the last 2 years? Defense. They couldn't defend well. Their goaltending was poor from Kari Lehtinen, as I like to call him. Kari Lehtinen, he was awful. Same with Antti Niemi. Niemi's gone now, and Lehtinen's the backup. They bring in Ben Bishop. They're going to stabilize that Dallas goaltending situation. They're going to defend better because Ken Hitchcock wants players that will pay attention to both ends of the ice, because if you don't, you're not going to play for him. That's all there is to it. So Dallas will be better on the defensive end. I like them to make the playoffs. A team that I think is bet on too, a dark horse, maybe won't make the playoffs, but they've been so bad for a few years now. Arizona Coyotes might offer some betting value. They've been such a woe-begotten franchise in the NHL for the last couple of years, but they've got a pipeline of great young talent that they're bringing in. Max Domi, they bring in Derek Stepan. Anthony Duclair, I think, is going to play good. I saw lots of good things from Christian Dvorak last year for this team. Brendan Perlini can play. Dylan Strome is finally going to be a regular, former first-round pick. He's going to be a regular on this Arizona Coyotes roster this season. Their defense was upgraded. Great pickup to get Jason Demers, a great shutdown defenseman in the offseason. Goaltending, again, is their issue because, unfortunately, Antti Ranta and Louis Domingue are their two goalies, and I'm not sure either one is one that I want to go to war with in between the pipes. But they're going to be able to be improved offensively and improved on the blue line. They're not going to make the playoffs probably, but they could make a spiked improvement. And because they were so bad, they're going to be priced with big dog prices, and big dog prices you might be able to cash in on a few times this season.
There we go. There you have it, man. Hockey expert Ian Cameron. Follow him, folks, at Bobano. Also, you can find him on Ice Guys. Ian, is Ice Guys I know it comes on 9 a.m. Eastern time. Is that Monday through Friday with the NHL season?
It's not right now, Donnie. It might be in the playoffs down the road, but for the regular season, it's going to be just Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And why that is because Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday are the 3 days every week in the NHL that there's 8 or more games on the card. There's lots to pick from, a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak, on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So those are the 3 days you could catch us at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Myself, Dana Lane, Andrew McInnes, and Alex B. Smith, the newest member of our SBR family. They're with me on the Ice Guys, and we'll be doing it tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., breaking down Thursday's card. It'll be a lot of fun. If you are a puckhead, you want to be there, and you want to tune in.
Yep. Once again, folks, Ian's going to be here each and every Wednesday with me here on the closing line. We'll be breaking it all down. And again, once college basketball starts, NBA starts, we're going to be breaking that down as well. Ian's very versed in many, many things here, which is going to transcribe us directly over to college football. We do have a game tonight. It is Wednesday. Not the only thing on TV is Major League Baseball. 301-302, Ian, Arkansas State and Georgia Southern here. Arkansas State a little bit banged up. Looks like they will be full go tonight versus, to me, not so good of a Georgia Southern squad. Pinnacle opened up the line at 7, now sitting at 8.5. Chris opened up at 6. That now sits at 9. Sportsbook.com, Ian, even showing a minus 9.5, and that crept up in the past couple days. Mostly it was 7 to me for all week long, but late last night, early this morning, some of those lines got hit a little bit. Over under in this one, Ian, opened up at Chris 55, opened up at Pinnacle at 57. Excuse me, Chris opened at 57, Pinnacle opened up at 55. Now currently sit Bet Online actually flashing a 54.5. Not a great game, and I get it. If it's on a normal Saturday card, folks, I'm not betting this game, but obviously this is the closing line. It's going to be a game tonight. It's going to start, so we're going to give you an opinion on this one. If we're looking overall at these two teams, and I think it's pretty decided, one team is much better than the other one, that leaning to be Arkansas State, rotation 301. If we look at them coming into the game, very game effort there, but did lose the game versus Nebraska 43-36. That's when Nebraska, coming in the season, much higher hopes, not an injured football team, easily beat Arkansas Pine Bluff. I don't want to say struggled with SMU, but they didn't handle it too well, 44-31. But looking at Georgia Southern on the opposite side, got hammered by Auburn, which is no small thing. Most teams of that caliber are going to get beat that way. Didn't anticipate a loss to New Hampshire, 22-12, when they were favored by 7 points. And also Indiana thumped them pretty good. Both these teams had a little bit of time off to regroup here. I think it did wonders for Arkansas State. The one thing that's going to be tough in this game to me, Ian, is Georgia Southern and their defense, giving up 259 rush yards per game, 5.9 yards per clip. I think that's going to be their downfall tonight. I see it myself, Ian. 2 touchdowns, double-digit victory by Arkansas State. Even though, hey, look, 84% of the spreads are coming in Arkansas State. Most people think they're going to win this football game. I'll keep it square because I can't build a case, Ian, that Georgia Southern can upset them here.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't. And it's funny because I'm in a country which is a hockey-crazed country, and I'm not one of those people that, when hockey starts, I put myself in a little hockey cave and I pretend that no other sport exists. Not me. I know I'll be watching hockey tonight, but I'm going to be keeping an eye on this Sun Belt football game. I'll be watching that. I'll be watching the baseball playoff game tonight. I'll be watching everything. I'm an equal opportunity sports bettor and fan. I'm not one of those crazy Canadians that's hockey only. Not this guy. I love everything, and I love my Sun Belt football. And I wanted to make a case, Donnie, for Arkansas State here. You just missed the best of the number, unfortunately. I don't love chasing bad numbers. I mean, you could have gotten 6.5, 6 when it opened. Now it's up to as much as 9 now in a lot of places. as a road favorite. And Arkansas State, let's not forget, they're one of those Sun Belt teams that last year, they got crushed in non-conference play. They come back in Sun Belt play, and that's when they bear down. They play their best football, and they go on a point spread streak. And Arkansas State, usually when the conference season begins, that's when you get this team's best football, without a doubt. And Georgia Southern, I can't make a case. I'm sorry. I try to. They're a juicy home dog on national TV, catching 9 points. You would think I would do something to make a case for them. I just don't know if I can do it. I mean, you look at these 3 games. It's been an utter disaster for Summers in this program. 41-7 loss to Auburn, 22-12 loss to New Hampshire. 52-17 drubbing at the hands of Indiana. I know they're off a bye week, but so is Arkansas State. It's one of those situations where there's no situational advantage whatsoever. This is where the better team, the deeper team, better quarterback, a better defense, just should be able to overwhelm a team that has nothing going for it. I have not liked anything I've seen from Georgia Southern in their program since Willie Fritz left. We're finding out how good a coach he was for this program because they've not been the same since, and we're seeing what Fritz is doing with Tulane. They're more competitive and improving on a week in and week out basis. There's no case, unfortunately, for me to be made with Georgia Southern, even though they're now a more than touchdown home underdog. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points, but I just can't pull the trigger on the home dog. I just can't.
Yeah, next up, we'll go over, Ian, the following night. Obviously, on Thursday, you're going to have an NFL game matchup and also a NCAA football game. Louisville, NC State, good Thursday night game. Rotation 305, 306. Line opened up at Pinnacle at 2.5. Line opened up at Chris at -1. Both in favor of Louisville. Louisville's still the favorite here. I did see some 4s out there throughout the week, but they have now dipped down to 3.5. Over-under in this one, Ian, opened up at 63. Now sitting at 65.5 to 66.5, depending where you're shopping out there. An electric football team. 2 good offenses that are going to come into this game. And I got to say, I know Louisville gets a lot of the pub out there. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, really good football player, running for the Heisman to see what kind of video game numbers he can put up. We've all seen it in the past. But this isn't the same Louisville team that you've seen over the past 2-3 years. Not as good on defense, not as much weapons on the outside, not as good a running game, obviously, outside of Jackson. I'm going to lean short here, and I'm going to take the home dog here in NC State as a lean in this one. I think NC State's going to be ready for this football game. You're going to get Lamar Jackson away from home. You're going to get him on grass at Carter Finley. And I think NC State, coming off, they showed they can up the ante beating Florida State. Now, again, this isn't the best Florida State team that we've ever seen, but going down to Tallahassee and beating them, no small feat. I think they're going to be prime and ready for this game. I can see them upsetting Louisville here.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to take NC State and win with them when they beat Florida State on the road. I thought that was a great number, great situation, and a good matchup for NC State. And if I felt that they could beat Florida State at home, or in Tallahassee with Florida State at home, I should feel that they have a good chance at home here, NC State, to beat Louisville in this game. And I do. I totally agree. I think NC State has matchup advantages here in this football game. Their defensive front seven's very good. They can shut you down. They can blow up the line of scrimmage. We've seen that from this NC State team so far this season. And when you look at Louisville's offensive line, if Lamar Jackson's not improvising and breaking the pocket and making plays with his feet, sometimes when he's contained in that pocket, that pass rush just does not hold up for Louisville. It's a very suspect, in my opinion, offensive line that has given up some sacks, has just not held up as well this season. And on the skill position talent, yeah, they got some guys for sure that can catch the football, but I don't think they have as much depth there as they've had in the past. There's no really outstanding standout talent at wide receiver. Devontae Parker, of course, a guy that was gone to the NFL since, that was very good for Louisville. And NC State, Ryan Finley, what I like too is that he's valued the football. He doesn't treat it like a hand grenade. He is on an incredible streak of not throwing an interception that has gone on for a very long time. I've said it before that he's got cohesion and chemistry running this very balanced run-pass offense. They're very multi-dimensional, multifaceted, which is good, which is what you want against a team like Louisville. But a Louisville team that defensively, Donnie, Purdue moved the ball against them in extended stretches. North Carolina had no problem moving the ball against them. And you look at some of their defensive performances, it's just been underwhelming from the Louisville Cardinals so far this season, especially in their step-up in class games. So I think NC State offensively can move it against Louisville, and I think Louisville's going to struggle a bit to do the same against this very fierce NC State defensive front, which could take advantage of this Louisville O-line. So, yeah, +3.5. It was +4. It's down to 3.5. But even at now, the current number, Wolfpack live, and I think can win outright. Maybe a little money line sprinkle worth a look, too. I think they can win.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I'm looking forward to the New England game New England Tampa Bay, and then you're going to have Louisville, NC State to back it up. You're going to have NHL hockey. I mean, this is a great time of the season. We have the confluence where everything's getting underway. Let's pick one more game out here in NCAA football. We'll go with the Friday game. Interesting one to me, 309, 310, Ian, Boise State and BYU. We take a look at the ticket count right now, 82% of the early wagers spread-wise coming in on Boise State. Line opened up at -9 at Pinnacle, -7.5 at Chris. Line currently sits at 9. It looks like across the board. The Greek actually showing -8.5, over under a 44. Last time, it's one of these games in where sometimes I think these football teams can't wait to get back on the field. Last time we saw Boise State getting thumped at home by Virginia, 42-23. And then we look at BYU. Now, BYU hasn't had the easiest schedule here. Opened up against Portland State, very disappointing, laying 37.5. Only winning by 14 points, 20-6. LSU shuts them out 27-0. They lose to Utah 19-13. Wisconsin pummels them 40-6. And then Utah State, the game was 40-24, but it seemed to be watching that football game was a lot worse than that. Two teams needing an absolute rebound in this one. But I don't know what I'm getting out of BYU, to be quite honest with you. I know the injuries have piled up for them, but very un-BYU-like to get thumped 4 straight games. I would lean Boise State here, and this isn't a very good Boise State team, and they're not even playing at home on the Smurf turf out there going to BYU. I don't have much faith in BYU. I can see Boise State winning this football game by 10 to 14 points easily here just because I'm not in love with BYU. I think their offense is terrible.
Yeah, you know what? It's a very, very tough game. I'm not going to be involved, but I will say this. Situationally, you got Boise off a bye and off just an embarrassment, really. If that was a Friday night national TV home game on the Smurf turf against Virginia prior to their bye week, they didn't look like they belonged on the same field as that ACC Virginia team. And it's not like we're talking about Virginia, one of the cream of the crop of the ACC. And Virginia had their way, 42-23. They were able to move the ball at will against Boise State's defense. Brett Rippon didn't really have a great game. They got behind early. They could never make it up. I am not in love with this Boise State team. I haven't been all season. I thought they'd take a downward trip this season, and so far they've done that. They're off to a mediocre 2-2 start, both straight up and against the spread. But on the flip side, unfortunately, they're against a team that I have even less of an opinion on right now. This BYU team, it was just awful last week, seeing them get carved up by Kent Myers and that Utah State up-tempo offense. 40 yards put up, or 40 points put up, rather, by Utah State in that game last week. Just not very good whatsoever for this BYU team. And offensively, it doesn't even matter who the quarterback is. I mean, there's something going on, Donnie, with this team offensively. There's a disconnect between Kalani Sitake, the head coach, and Ty Detmer, the offensive coordinator. They've been squabbling at each other. Sitake's come out and said, Detmer, you got to do things differently. We got to change things up. Our offense is not working, and they've sort of been butting heads a little bit. It's a bad situation right now with BYU, and this offense isn't getting any better. It doesn't really matter at this point whether it's Tanner Mangum or whether it's Bo Hodge at quarterback for this BYU team. And look at Hodge so far. He hasn't been the answer. 55% completions, more interceptions than touchdowns. Yeah, that's not an offense I want to trust right now, BYU whatsoever. I'm not a big Boise fan, but if I had to, and I want to give out a lean here to the viewers, even though I'm not going to be betting it, I would be with you on Boise State laying the points here off the bye, off the embarrassment against Virginia. But I don't like Boise that much, so I'm staying away. But BYU, to me, is getting close to unbackable status. I mean, it's just been a disaster offensively. You got coach and offensive coordinator not getting along. Bad situation there right now in Provo.
Yeah, no, I get excited, Eden, Wednesday night, because obviously I know Thursday football is on deck there, and then that whole weekend gets started. A lot of the hard work put in already with us cappers here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, getting ready for the weekend, doing shows. You get excited. Kickoff is there. You're putting out plays. You're trying to zero in on some stuff. So a lot of fun to be had this weekend. So we're going to dip into some NFL here, folks. If you're just tuning into the closing line, October 4th. Presented by SportsBookReview.com. I am here with my co-host tonight, Ian Cameron Appobano, host of the Ice Guys here right at SportsBookReview.com. Ian, why don't we just pick up and take tomorrow night, 3:03, 3:04, New England, Tampa Bay. Great matchup. I'm really looking forward to this game. Line currently sitting now at 5. It depends, some 5.5s out there, but looking at Chris opening up at 4, I saw that line spike up to 5.5. Now it looks like it dips to around 5, and I agree there. I can see where they're coming from. If you look from a Tampa Bay perspective here, the one thing that gives you a little bit of pause is can that defensive line get home versus Tom Brady, but also behind the playmakers at linebacker are not going to be there. Alexander and Levante David are going to sit this one out. You have some okay cornerbacks. Vernon Hargreaves, who I liked coming out of college. If you look at Pro Football Focus, or if you look at, targets and how many yards he's given up, they're sort of picking on him, but they do have Grimes on the other side who's a good cornerback, so they tend to stay away. This football game, to me, is going to come down to Jameis Winston, because I think it's going to be hard for New England to get home on Jameis. And also, Ian, when it boils down to it, you're not asking Tampa Bay to win this football game. You're just asking them to stay close. And right now, the MO for the New England Patriots is they can't get off the field on defense. They can't hold a lead. Seems like it's coming down to every fourth quarter where they're down in the fourth quarter and need Brady to bring them back. You saw that in the Houston game. He tried to do that in the Panthers game, ended up taking a loss. And those were some home games that they struggled and got beat. Now heading on the road, we all know, Ian, it's hard. You have the game on Sunday, you lost. You got to flip that. You got to go down to Tampa Bay. You're not going to be at home on your turf. You're going to be in a different atmosphere down there. It's going to be a little bit warmer. It's going to be on grass, so some unnatural things that you're not used to playing in that football game. And again, the line sits at 5. Over under, just astounding to me, Ian, at 55.5. On paper, full rest, ready for the game. They can probably hit that 55.5. But just coming into the game, Tom Brady's not a spring chicken out there. Over 40 years old. Jameis Winston should be able to move around the pocket and make plays here. He's got weapons all over the field, and I'm not happy with what I've seen out of New England. And again, boiling it down, I think in the fourth quarter it's going to be a close game. Do I think Tampa Bay can win this game? Yes, I do. But I'm more confident, Ian, that can cover that 5.5 number here.
Yeah, it's a very high total. And I know Thursday night short week, sometimes that's not always conducive to overs. But there's no way I could take it under. When you look at this situation with New England, 30th or worse defensively in pretty much every major defensive category, against the pass, against the run, yards per play allowed, the whole bit. New England 30th or worse pretty much in all three. But on the flip side, you got Tampa Bay. Cluster injuries on all three levels of the defense. Defensive line, linebacker, and secondary. So you've got issues defensively both sides. I could still only look over. And I'm still of the belief New England's overvalued based on that 16-3 ATS surge they had last year, regular season and playoffs combined. So going to keep it short because we talked about this game earlier today. But yeah, I absolutely lean Bucks and absolutely lean over. Only ways I'd bet it.
Ian, one game I'm looking at here, obviously I have a couple that I've picked out here that I'm still scrambling for, getting information, breaking a couple things down. There's a lot of good spots that I like this week. But the one that's given me the most trouble, and it's actually, to me, probably the best game on the card, I want to say offensive-wise, and that's 471, 472, Green Bay and Dallas. You have a confluence of things that I like to look at. Obviously, I like to bet home teams with a spread of 3 or less, or even maybe a dog at home here. You have a good Dallas Cowboys football team that's good on defense only when Sean Lee shows up in situations. He's going to try to get back on the football field this week. They're trying to get Anthony Hitchens back. They don't think he's probably going to make it. But this all boils down to if Sean Lee can play in this game. The one thing I like is the stats that we brought up last week. When you play on that Thursday night game, all that rest you get while the other team plays on a Sunday or Monday, that's going to be a big effort. Reading some of the stuff coming out of Green Bay today, doing a little bit of research, everybody practiced today for Green Bay, even all their linemen. Not to say they're going to play in the football game, but it's one of those steps that you make where, hey, how's it going to feel the next day? Is your hamstring, is your ankle going to be bulky? But everybody gave it a go for Green Bay coming into this, because the one thing I don't like about Dallas is their secondary. And obviously, if you can protect Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be able to throw, move the ball downfield. Even Devontae Adams practiced today when it looked like he almost died on the football field on Thursday. Said he was feeling good. So if you have Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams going to play in this football game, it doesn't really matter if Ty Montgomery plays. He actually was on the football field despite having a couple fractured ribs. That doesn't even matter, because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to fall to him, maybe throw the ball 40, 45 times in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. But the one thing I want to ask you, Ian, is why I even brought the game up, is I'm having a hard time saying which team is actually going to have the advantage in this one, because dating back to last year in the playoffs, I thought the Dallas Cowboys would beat the Green Bay Packers. They didn't beat them, and a lot of that had to do Jason Garrett not just leaning on the run game and Zeke and saying, I'm going to give you this ball against a good football team 30 to 35 times. You should be able to churn it out. 31s, 32s, they're throwing outside. They're throwing, slants over the middle. What do you see in this ball game, Ian, that might be able to flip somebody to take Green Bay or Dallas here? Any ideas?
It's tough because I think from a spot perspective, you've got Dallas playoff revenge here from last year. You've got Dallas off the loss to the LA Rams against a Green Bay team that, going on the road. We've seen, they played the one road game so far this season. Green Bay, that was the loss by 11 against the Atlanta Falcons. So do you trust Green Bay on the road like you do at home? All of those things add up to Dallas, in my opinion, in this game. But I keep going back to that 6-0 ATS start this season for teams that are rested from the Thursday night game the week before. Teams in that spot, they're 6-0 against the spread. Every team covered the number. San Francisco did it as an underdog against Arizona last week, and the LA Rams did it, winning outright as a dog against Dallas. That Thursday night extra rest, extra practice, it's like worth its weight in gold, basically. It's invaluable for NFL football teams. That is the one concern I have with going with Dallas in this game, even though I lean that way. I think the better bet, and this is my roundtable best bet from earlier today, over the total of 52. I think we've got two teams that can't stop what the other team does well. You've got a Dallas team that's banged up in the secondary. You could get one or both of Bakhtiari and Balaga back on that Green Bay offensive line. They might have Devontae Adams, and we don't want to make jokes usually about death, but if you saw that hit that Devontae Adams took for that POS move, it's a POS move in my opinion, by Danny Trevathan. It was absolutely awful to see that. Cheap shot all the way. The fact that he had a concussion from that and could still play in this game is miraculous, is outstanding. But from what I'm hearing, he's more on track to play than not for Green Bay in this football game, which is outstanding for their pass attack that can absolutely feast on this Dallas secondary in my mind. But on the flip side, Dallas should be able to run down Green Bay's throat. I mean, this is a Dom Capers defense that's transitioned to this nitro package, as they call it, but it's not equipped to stop the run. It isn't. I mean, it's just not an alignment that works well against power run games. And that's what you get from Ezekiel Elliott and this Dallas team when they're running the football behind that offensive line. So I don't think Green Bay can stop what Dallas does well. And I don't think Dallas is going to be able to stop what Green Bay does well. And that's Aaron Rodgers making plays down the field in the passing game. And we saw 34-31 in the playoffs last year between these two teams. I think he can get over that 52.
No, I like where you're going with that because, again, if you can get both of those tackles out there, that's only going to mean more time for Aaron Rodgers. When you try to get in the crux of the situation of what can push you over that to like 54, 55, 56 points, the one thing I actually really like is the fact that Ty Montgomery is banged up and the backup Jamal Williams is banged up as well. So what does that mean? You say, well, what is it? You know, they probably have a third or fourth running back. What that means to me is instead of that called run that you typically have at the line of scrimmage, maybe it means, Ian, maybe 5 to 6 more passes because you don't trust the third string running back who is a rookie from Utah State, as opposed to what you would with Ty Montgomery. Hey, we don't want to give him 15 carries or 15 touches. He's got fractured ribs. Instead of doing that, maybe you run some play action passes, which could extend the game. And if you're going to attack that Dallas secondary, give me 4 to 5 more passes in that football game from Aaron Rodgers, a couple more targets. I like that. I think that's a pretty good shot there for you, Ian. Tonight here on the closing line, go ahead, man. Yep, fit it in, baby.
Yeah, I was just going to say one last thing about Green Bay, too. If you're going to throw the ball more, and they very well could if Montgomery doesn't play or he's banged up, it means more plays, less time off the clock, and it definitely adds up for an over-better, that's for sure.
No, a lot of fun. Ian, before we get out of here tonight, obviously NHL full swing tonight, 4 games on the docket on the closing line. You know, whenever we have some experts on here, I like to pick their brain, maybe give the people out there a play they can lean on. You have 4 games tonight. 4 sides, 4 totals. If you bet 1 game tonight for the people out there, Ian, which way we leaning tonight for you, buddy?
Let's go with Toronto, Winnipeg over 6. I believe that's -110 with the juice pretty much across the board right now. You're going to have to hurry. This one's dropping the puck in about 15 minutes or so. But Toronto, Winnipeg over 6 at -110. Yeah, look, 10-0 to the over the last 10 meetings with the Leafs and Jets. They're loaded with offensive firepower. When it keeps coming up red on the table, are you going to bet black? No, I'm going to stick with red because it's 10-0 to the over the last 10 meetings here, Leafs and Jets. It's been one high-scoring affair after another. 2-5-4 games last year. Let's see if we can get to 7 or more tonight. Let's take Leafs-Jets over 6 here in NHL action tonight.
Fantastic. And as you know, in Las Vegas, you know, Britney Spears has a residency. Ian now has a residence here in the closing line each and every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time. He will be here throughout the season, dropping hockey knowledge information. We'll do the same thing every time. We'll hit NCAA football, NFL. A lot of fun having him on here. Closing line October 4th, presented by SportsbookReview.com. Tonight is your host, Donnie Rightside, as usual, with my partner tonight, Ian Cameron. Follow him, guys, at Bobano on Twitter. A great follow. Also host of the Ice Guys and also appearing 12:30 Eastern time on Wednesdays during the roundtable. A lot of stuff you can check him out with all his football stuff, Canadian football stuff as well as hockey. Check him out. Give him a couple likes there. Check out all the latest on sportsbookreview.com, SBRodds.com. Give us a like and follow on Twitter as well, SBR Sports Picks. Subscribe to us on YouTube from all of us at sportsbookreview.com. Good luck. We hope you help you on your wagers, and we hope you beat the closing line tonight. Take care, fellas.